Hello, this is Lee Wynn, back to you once again with horses and my life's history a little bit. I visited not long ago about training horses and that you don't always get good horses sent to you when you're a new trainer. And that's true today as well as it was back 60 years ago when I was taking horses in training 65 years ago. Tell you about one horse that came. Some people had a big gray quarter horse. He was bred in the Hancock line, and he was running away with a little girl that was riding him. He was a 16-hand, big, strong horse, and little Martha was just a little tiny thing, and she just wasn't strong enough. And they brought him and said, "Can you break him from running away?" And I said, "I think I can." And remember that in my early days, I was not a horse whisperer, if you will. I was a pretty tough cowboy. At least I thought I was. And that's the way I trained horses, is with hard discipline. Anyway, I got on this horse and we were living out at Cedar Bluff. Camary and I had not been married very long. And down away from the barn out in front of it, we had a 160-acre, almost round field that I had planted in wheat, and we rode over it too. And I got on this big colt, and I thought, well, I'll go check my cattle over on the north side of the place. Had to cross the Stillwater Creek Slough, and it was maybe 20 yards wide and 3 feet deep roughly. It was kind of like a slough. It was very slow moving water, but this particular spot had a sand rock bottom under it, and so it was a good place to ride across, water about 3 feet deep. It was cold out. It was cold enough that there was a skim of ice over the creek. And anyway, I took this big colt out and I put him into a canter and started to turn him, and sure enough, he grabbed the bit and it wasn't what he wanted to do. So he grabbed the bit and away he went. Well, I just let him run. I could guide him. And so we galloped around that big brown field. It was about a quarter of a section, a little more, and I just let him run because fatigue sometimes will get one to where they won't go. And so he ran for quite a while, and finally decided that he'd run enough on his own. And so then I said, "Now you have to run," and I made him run, and until he was really wanting to back off, and that's what I was wanting. I was wanting him to get it out of his system running and to learn that wasn't something that I was willing to let him do, and then I was going to make him run so that the next time we cantered, maybe he wouldn't do that. Anyway, we'd been out there for quite a while. He'd run pretty hard, and he was pretty sweaty all down his neck, and again, it's freezing out. We're probably at 25, 26 degrees. And so I let him come down to a walk. And I thought, well, I started out to go check my cattle. I'll go ahead and check them. And so I put him back into a canter because he had quit breathing hard. And I wanted to see if he was going to run away again. And he didn't really. But I rode over where I normally cross the creek on this one crossing spot. And I just cantered him into the water. Well, you know, when you can, and there was a really thin skim of ice over the whole thing, not enough to cause any damage of hitting the ice, but he cantered and he hit the water, and he's about halfway across, and this cold water splashing up in his face, he passed out. He went down. And when I stood up in the water, he went down underneath me. I still had a hold to the reins, but I couldn't see any horse at all. He was totally under the water. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to kill a customer's horse here. And so I pulled on the reins and I got his nose, and he was passed out. And so I tucked his nose, my arms around his head, and I had his nose above water so that he blew a little bit of water out of him, and he's breathing. And I'm standing in this water waist deep, just a little over waist deep. thinking, I'll stand here until he dies. When he quits breathing, then I'll turn him loose and whatnot. Well, I'm standing there, and I don't know how long it was. It probably wasn't over 30, 45 seconds. It seemed like hours, you know. Anyway, he started coming around and he started fighting and fussing, trying to pull his head down. And so I couldn't hold his head anymore, and he pulled it under, and of course that shocked him, and then he stood up. Well, when he stood up, I saw he was getting up. I just stuck my leg over his back, and when he got up, I was sitting on top of him. And I rode him out of the creek and went on over and checked my cattle, and as I had started to do. But we're riding at a walk and a little trot now and then. And I checked the cattle, and I came back and crossed the creek again and got back to the barn. When I got to the barn, I'm frozen to the saddle. My clothes are frozen solid. I mean, my coat that I had on, my shirt, I still had some warmth next to me, next to my skin, but my clothes were frozen on the outside, and my seat was frozen, my legs were frozen to the saddle, so I had to break those to get off. And I got the ice all broken and got off of him and took the saddle off of him and rubbed him down a little bit. It was cold, yes, but there was one plus to all of that. He never ran away again with me or with her or with anybody. He became quite docile when it came to cantering. So sometimes a traumatic event can cause those kind of things to happen. I don't recommend it necessarily, but it is one way of doing it. If you've enjoyed this, subscribe, and so you'll get my others coming down the road. I have another one that I'll be putting up in the next couple of days, discussing where we live and how we live in today's society. Have a wonderful day.